Welcome back. And a couple of things that we want to address with regard to the comments made earlier by Joe Salton is hormones. A&W has definitely made a comment about no added growth hormones. Let's talk a little bit about the hormones naturally occurring in beef and other substances.
Right. So there's no such thing as hormone-free beef. Every animal, every mammal, every reptile, every amphibian has hormones in it. They're there naturally occurring. And you know, the reason that we use implants and other growth promotants is because they allow the animal to grow more efficiently.
And
now,
you brought a slide to show some of this stuff as well, comparing it to a bottle of beer and so forth.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of concern, well, we're adding these hormones to the beef, we're adding it to the cattle, what is that going to do? And in fact, it's not going to do it's not going to do anything. What these implants do is they stimulate the animal to produce more of the hormones that are naturally occurring anyway. And so it helps them to grow more efficiently. Now, there's always concern, however, but we don't need to eat more hormones. You need to put things in context. If you look at the amount of hormone that is available in implanted beef, you'd need to eat, the slide will show you this, if you would need to eat roughly 7.5 servings, so that's 75 grams, 7.5 restaurant-sized steaks in order to get as much estrogen as you would from one beer.
Wow.
You need to eat 250 of those steaks to get as much as you would from one serving of raw peas. You can work your way all down the list. If you're worried about added hormones, birth control pills, you'd need to eat 17,500 of them to get the equivalent of one birth control pill. And, the average pregnant female every day produces as much estrogen as eating 45,000 steaks. So there's... These implanted beef is not a really efficient way to get added hormones. If you want hormones, you're going to have to get them someplace other than beef. And you can say the same thing for other implants. You can say the same thing for other growth promotants. This is just an illustration. Same thing applies.
So now we've addressed a few things. We've addressed antibiotics in our food supply. We've addressed animal health concerns and growth promotants, and now hormones as part of the growth promotant package. Let's move our focus to CFIA, Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And one comment that I hear from consumers is, we really don't feel that our Canadian food supply is safe. And there's been E. coli outbreaks even recently last week that we saw coming out of Ontario. And there seems to be a bit of a consumer perception that our food system here in Canada isn't safe. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, it's kind of a perverse deal, actually, because I think arguably the food supply, the beef in Canada is safer than it ever has been. I think what's happening is that our ability to detect these things is getting so much better that when a person gets sick, it's a lot easier to isolate what it is that made them sick. And so, genomics technologies and whatnot all play into that. So, and it also makes those technologies also make it easier to trace those infections back to whatever caused it. So I think a lot of the infections that are getting detected now are ones that they just couldn't trace back to anything before. Now we're better at finding them, we're better at tracing them back, and so we're having more recalls. So actually, I think that should help people feel safer about our food supply. And I've got a slide here, I don't know if you can show that, but if you actually look at the incidence of laboratory confirmed E. coli illness in humans, this is in humans because it doesn't make cattle sick, over the years, Canada's the red blocks up on the top, and they have plummeted. They have come way down. The U.S. used to be way lower than us, and we're just neck and neck with them now. So E. coli illness is actually getting a lot rarer in Canada than it ever used to be. I think we're just getting a lot better at finding it, and I think we could lower that bar still farther if we could introduce irradiation in Canada to essentially sterilize that beef.
So tell us a little bit about irradiation. It's been a hot topic in some sectors, certainly food production. Some consumer groups don't like it. Tell us about the science behind it. What's happening with irradiation, especially for red meat?
So what irradiation does is it bombards the meat with a low level of electron beam that'll kill the bugs. It has no effect on the nutrient content of the beef at all. It just kills the bugs that'll either make people sick or that'll spoil it. I mean, those levels, and that's a bit of a challenge, right? Because those levels, the packing plants have introduced really, really effective ways of getting pathogens off the beef. The modern packing plants that have all of the available pathogen reduction systems in place now, they can produce carcasses with 4 bacteria on them, which is pretty remarkable. And so what we're trying to do is get rid of those last 4 by the time that gets to the end of the packing plant. And irradiation can do that. So,
well, one comment I've heard from consumers as well irradiation, doesn't it change the cell structure of the meat? Doesn't it deform it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't affect the nutrient content of the beef at all. It doesn't. It kills the bacteria. It doesn't affect the nutrient content of the beef. I mean, onions still taste like onions. Potatoes still taste like potatoes, and spices still taste just the way they're supposed to. And they've been irradiating those for years. And I don't. It's not affecting human health at all. It's making food safer.
In your opinion, what has to happen for irradiation to become commonplace for food safety?
So there's a couple of things that has to happen. One of them's already done. The Beef Cattle Research Council, who I work for, we've funded some research that was done at the University of Manitoba that looked at the effectiveness of new methods of irradiation that are really low dose and how effective they are to eliminate bacteria from trim. They work well. We've got the evidence that we can use this technology to make beef safe. Another thing that has to happen, that's also happened, is the CCA, Canadian Cattlemen's, needs to resubmit a petition to Health Canada asking for its approval, along with all the documentation. They've done that. Now it's in Health Canada's court to decide whether to approve it to make beef safer for Canadians.
Well, Reynold, thank you for being on our show today. Thank you for answering our questions, and I think you've given us an excellent perspective on where things sit with our food supply, and given us our consumers some new perspectives. So on our next segment, we're going to look at farm safety. So join us in a moment.